group. Usually I have to take time to have everybody settle down, but you guys are right on cue. So thank you all for coming. The Willow Glen Neighborhood Association, of course, is all about our membership, and the involvement really helps us make changes in the neighborhood. So thank you guys for all being here. Of course, I want to thank the Mulcahy Center for providing us with this great space for our meetings, for our general meetings. Thank you, Vita, who is always here to make sure the chairs are on and everything's prepared for us. So thank you. Today, I do want to highlight, well, first let me also mention our board. We got Mitch Ehrlich here. He's our treasurer up here in the front row. All right. Trudy McKenna, she's on the board also. Mary Fox, who's right here on the side. And then myself, Jose Salcido, I'm the vice president. Our president wasn't able to be here tonight, so I'm going to be handling the meeting. But I want to highlight the events we got coming up. And some of the events, of course, are, they're all important, but some are sponsored directly by Willow Glen Neighborhood Association. The music in the Glen, that's one that's coming up this coming Sunday, so we'll highlight that one. Family Night on the Avenue, July 31st, Thursday from 4 to 7. That one's by the Business Association in downtown Willow Glen. The music in the Glen again is, and I believe it's the...
Sunday.
Yeah, but who sponsors that one? That's the Kiwanis Club. So that's a great event. Many people go to that, and the music, of course, is great to listen to in the park. Our big one, though, coming up on August 5th, Tuesday, is the National Night Out from 5. How many people in the past have been to National Night Out in Willow Glen? Okay, about a third. So quite a few people show up, but a great opportunity to meet our police officers. San Jose PD is represented in a good number, and it's just nice to see the neighbors. We've got a bounce house or a slide. I think it's a bouncy slide, and face painting, music. We also have a band coming, and then 4 different food trucks. So it really is a great festival. The Community Walk Run event, which is on August 9th, Saturday, that's actually going to be with San Jose PD. They'll be coming out for a walk run with the community. And they just recently cleaned up the trail. So it's a great opportunity to not only come out and meet your officers, but also to see the work that's being done with the cleanups that are going on around the community. Three Creeks Trail Iris Bed Cleaning, that's going on at 9:45 on August 17th. And then the Lincoln Coal Cleanup is organized by Councilmember Mulcahy, his team, his District 6 team. They're going to be doing that cleanup at 9 a.m. August 23rd, and that is in prep for the painting of the bridge there that's going to be happening down the road. So please, if you can come that, you know, the more people we have, the less work we have to do. So I encourage everybody to be there. The Repair Cafe is actually the first time we're doing this. We're partnering up with a Repair Cafe at Willow Glen High School at the theater from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And that is actually going to be anything you have that you were thinking about throwing out or getting rid of it, or you couldn't find someone to take it. If you bring it, they will repair it for you, whether it be bikes, even clothing, furniture, anything like that. Bring it out and get it fixed. There's a lot of, the donation centers are getting really picky on accepting stuff. Scratches on furniture they're not going to take. So if you've got something you really hate throwing it out or putting it there to be dumped, take it out there, get it buffed out and cleaned, and then take it to the donation center and they'll take it in. And then Viva Calle. Now it's a little bit down the road, September the 7th, but if you've ever been to one of those, it's a great event. They close off the streets and the pedestrians get to own them for a while, okay? So no traffic there. All right, so that's pretty much at the event. Once we get going with the meeting, we will have this up again. So if you want to take notes on it, you can do that at that time. I did notice Helen just came in. She's also on our board. Thank you, Helen, for being here. Appreciate it. And let's go to one of the main reasons we're here. Councilmember Mulcahy is going to brief us on the neighborhood and what's going on in Willow Glen.
Sure. Thank you, Jose.
I want to see Jose on the bounce house at National Night Out. So really what we're here for this evening is kind of the main event is the Department of Transportation is here to talk about Lincoln Avenue and the refurbishment of it. And so what I wanted to do is to just start out, I won't kind of go back on some of the things you talked about, but maybe illustrate a little bit more on some of the things that are happening in the community. But what a great turnout. Thank you for being here. Kind of a cool story that the last couple of neighborhood meetings that we've had have been some of our smaller neighborhood associations. Last night I was at the Tapna neighborhood, which is the Alameda Park Neighborhood Association. They're just north of 880, between 880 and Newhall, bordered by the Alameda. You know, a neighborhood that came together over concerns of a project in their neighborhood. And when I was a candidate, you know, they'd get 10, 15 people. Last night there were 50 people there. And so it's really important. And so the fact that the Willow Glen Neighborhood Association is turning out good numbers is great. And, you know, hopefully we'll continue to do that. So just gonna highlight a few of the events that are coming up. So the Buena Vista neighborhood, which is a neighborhood just north of us here, bounded by Parkmore on the south, San Carlos on the north, Meridian on the east, and Lee Avenue on the west. It's a neighborhood that is a high-need neighborhood in our District 6, and so we've been really trying to be supportive of them. And there's a couple of churches in there that have been very supportive of their neighborhood. They have an event coming up called Kicking It Back to School. It's in partnership, as I mentioned, with Buena Vista, but also Echo Church, the Hope Hangar, and our District 6 office. It's an opportunity to either raise money or people to go online and buy shoes and get shoes on kids' feet as they go back to school in the fall. This is going to be on Saturday, August 2nd, and they're currently collecting donations. So it's one of those things where if you've got shoes that, you know, are lightly worn or brand new, you can drop them off. This is very close to us here at the corner of Parkmore and Meridian. And we're going to give you some resources where after tonight, if you think, hey, I've got this extra pair, love to do that, or we'll show you how to go on Amazon and order some yourself, and those will get sent along to that organization. So want to make sure to point that out to you. So Jose talked about the Co and Lincoln cleanup. So when we started in this office in January, we knew pretty early on that this project on Lincoln Avenue was going to happen. And so we've sort of worked with different neighborhood associations. We've got 3 that are kind of directly connected to Lincoln Avenue. Glenside Riviera, kind of think of between Meridian and Lincoln Avenue, where Swim and Racket Club is. The other side of Lincoln Avenue is Palm Haven, and then of course Willow Glen Neighborhood Association. And so as we were looking through the budget requests that we would make to the city, one of the things we heard and thought about were these gateways in and out of Willow Glen, and one of them is at the Co Bridge where Arteagas is right at Co. And so we had the Glenside Riviera sponsor a grant, basically gave them the money. They're going to handle painting the green arches that go over the bridge there. And then on top of that, this major refurbishment, which you'll hear about in just a few minutes on Lincoln Avenue. We thought, what are some of the other things we can do to beautify the corridor and sort of add value to all this other work that's going to happen, and really some of the pain and suffering we're going to go through during the work that the DOT is going to have to handle over 2 miles of Lincoln Avenue. So we're going to do a cleanup on that Saturday, August 23rd. All these neighborhood associations are involved. There's a flyer that's out on the table. If you haven't grabbed it, we wish you would. But it's a combination of our office, trash punks. Yes, they exist. There are volunteer people who go out and clean up our neighborhoods. Beautify SJ and our neighborhood associations, as I mentioned. And so the idea is it's the Valley Water District as well. If you go to Co right now, you'll see that whole section is overgrown, right? It's sort of a jungle area. So we can't even get to painting those arches without removing a lot of the debris and things that are in there. So that's what that Saturday is all about. Then we come in and do the painting of the arches. Then we come in and do the resurfacing. And then we'll come back in September, and there are some ideas for some further beautification. But the idea is to get the Cove Bridge as well as the underpass at Highway 280 as Lincoln Avenue comes under it, those painted columns that are there. So that's all part of kind of a 2-month process to get our neighborhood looking better. And it kind of coincides with the Mulcahy, which is happening as well. So that's that. And I just want to point out, hey, Jessica, if you could just stand up real quick. Jessica Hellman is on our team, and she does all of our communications. If you want to just shout out a little bit of what you wanted me to say, I'm going to have you say it, though, like Linktree and how to find out more from us.
Yeah, so that QR code right there, right next to his photo, will take you to a lot of things. Essentially, any way you would like to communicate with us, all of our social media can be found there, our phone number, our email address, our website, our mailing address, and also you can easily access the most recent newsletter. You can also sign up for the newsletter. And then also I put on there the interest form that you might also see the QR code for the code of the cleanup. That's also on there. And then the Web Vista push list. So I encourage you all to go check it out. There's a lot of helpful information there.
And if you don't like technology and you want us to mail you our newsletter and our e-letter, they come out every 2 weeks. We're happy to do that. We have a growing list of some of our older population that does not like technology or doesn't use it, and we send it in the mail. But we're really focused on our newsletter, which comes out once a month. It's much more, kind of events and things that are coming up. And then 2 weeks thereafter, we do an e-letter, which is a little bit more policy-driven, things that are coming up before City Council, positions I've taken or will take, and why. So it's really proven to be a great tool, and we hear a lot from our community, sort of, kind of tipped off by that. It sort of sparks an idea or some feedback, and that's what we're here for. So we look forward to that. And if you can't see that QR code with your phone from where you're seated, this form is on the table in the back in the foyer. So please grab that, and that'll get you to the QR code, and it tells you all the different ways to reach us, our office. And let's see, I just want to introduce 2 other people who are here with me this evening. Karina, if you could stand up, please. Karina Castro works on our policy team in the office. And then Lynn Lee is our chief of staff in the office. And, we're here to help. So without further ado, let me just tell you a little bit about what you're in for this evening. Patrick and Anie are going to come up and speak in a moment from the Department of Transportation. We have senior leadership here as well this evening. And we're going to tell you what the plan is for the refurbishment of Lincoln Avenue. For those of you who have been through major refurbishments before, and I call it a refurbishment more than like resurfacing, because it really is it's going to be fabulous, but there's going to be some short-term pain for us to deal with. And so our office, along with the Willow Glen Business Association, have met. We've done a couple of walking tours with the Department of Transportation to make sure that we're addressing some legacy issues that we experienced in the core, for example, what some of the businesses are dealing with and things like that. We're not going to tell you what our plan is for the DoorDash drivers and all those that are making it really difficult to navigate Lincoln Avenue today. We're going to be looking for best practices on how we can do a better job of protecting both parking, circulation, and safety relative to our DoorDash drivers that are in our neighborhood every day, all day, seemingly. But we are going to talk about how we're going to improve the crosswalks and visibility and some of the things around organized parking. And so without further ado, we're going to bring up Annie and Patrick, and as they're walking up to make the presentation, there will be some conversation after their presentation. We're not here to kind of brainstorm necessarily and come up with solutions as much as hear your feedback. As I said, this has been kind of moving through the system, through the business association, through our office, and we wanted to make sure to bring it to the neighborhood because beyond the business core, this stretches out beyond, and so those of you who live in and adjacent to Lincoln Avenue, you'll definitely feel it. And so we're all going to have a open conversation about that, and we're going to do our best. And this is part of Measure T. All of those streets that have been redone already. This is one of the big McGillas in this quadrant of District 6. So come on up. I was like doing the time, so you could walk up and start. But all right, thank you, Annie and Patrick.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anie, and I am the senior engineer.
Get closer and
All right.
speak louder, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anie, and I am the senior engineer for the Major Streets Pavement Program. So I mainly focus on the arterial and collector streets in the city.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Lee, the senior engineer for the geometric design team at DOT. So my team is responsible for the sanding and striping design that you'll see following the pavement work.
All right. So this is the agenda for today. We're mainly going to focus on Lincoln Avenue. We're going to go over the scope of work, the schedule, the order of work, impacts that you may see, and also some special considerations within the project. And at the end, we'll go over any questions that you may have. So for the scope of work, we're planning to pave Lincoln Avenue from London Street all the way to Kerner Avenue. And the treatment is resurfacing, so we're planning to mill 2 inches of the asphalt and put back 2 inches of asphalt. And we're planning to install new striping and markings following the plans that Geometrics puts together. And then we're also planning to remove and replace the 11 stamped concrete crosswalks, so remove all the concrete and put back asphalt. So this is the schedule for our project. We are planning to start construction middle of September and finish it by the end of October. Our typical working hours for arterial and collector streets is 8:30 to 3:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. If for some reason we need to work during nighttime, it will be done at night from 9 to 5 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. But it is unlikely that we'll be needing to do this type of work at night. So for the order of work or operation, typically what we need to do first is locate all of our utilities, and also tie in any monuments that we have in the street. So you may see when you're walking Lincoln, some markings around the street or on the sidewalk. This is typically all related to that specific task. And then the next operation is lower utilities. So if there's a water bottle or a manhole, before we grind the street or mill, we have to lower it so the equipment doesn't damage that. And then after that, we're gonna mill the whole street from curve to curve. And then the next operation is we're gonna pave, put back asphalt. And after that, we are going to stripe and make any, install any of the markings. And also if there's any signage change, that will be done then. And then after that, we'll raise all the utilities that were lowered, so now everything will be at grade and flushed. For impacts, this is a high level, it's a little bit small, but prior to paving, you're going to see some of the spray paint markings on the street and the sidewalk. You're gonna see that it's not gonna be, typically it's not really loud, or you're not gonna really see major traffic impacts during the sun. But when we do lower the utilities, it does get a little bit loud because of all the jackhammering, but the traffic control for this is very temporary. So it moves really quick. Typically they're there in one specific location for 30 minutes. And then once we actually mill the street and pave the street, we are going to have lane closures. We are going to have tow-away signs on the street, and parking will be limited, and access to driveways will also be limited. There will be a lot of signage to notify, and also a lot of people, flaggers, people that work on traffic control that you can flag if you need access in and out. There may be some dust and noise that could potentially cause a disturbance, so please make sure that the windows and doors are closed as much as possible. And then when we are striping the streets and installing signs, there will be temporary lane closures and no parking as well. So some of the obstacles that we do have when we pave our streets are the trees. So we typically work with our arborist team to trim all the trees prior to our paving operations. So that has already been completed. And when we did our walkthrough with the council member, we did notice that there's planters, wheel stops, delineators, bike racks, and those will be temporarily removed and placed back after we're done. But for the parklets, as you see in the picture, they will be protected, they will stay in place, and we'll be paving around it. And then when we did our walkthrough, we also noticed that there's 11 stamped concrete crosswalks, and the majority of them have some chipping, some lifting, some of them are uneven, and if typically you see a lift of over a 1/4 inch, that could be a tripping hazard. So those are the things that we noticed, and we will be removing them because of that safety concern, and then we're gonna put back asphalt. This work to remove the concrete will be done as a separate operation and will be done before we mill and pave the street. And then through the designs that geometrics will be putting together, we're going to be installing high visibility crosswalks.
And then I'll talk about some of the design features that we're going to be installing on this corridor as part of the pavement project. So the first one is the high visibility crosswalk. So you see that picture below the piano keys. We'll be installing those at all these signalized intersections. That's our standard upgrade. And we'll also be installing those at the mid-block crosswalks where Anie talked about removing the decorative crosswalks. So we're going to replace the brick with the high visibility crosswalks that are standard across the city. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to narrow the lanes throughout the corridor. So we're going to go to 10-foot lanes to help reduce speeding. It won't have any traffic impacts, but it will help slow down those speeding vehicles that are exceeding way past the speed limit by creating that sense of narrowness. We'll also have a 10-foot shoulder for parking as well. That's clearly marked with the edge line, which is the third box here. So we just have a white line on the edge to delineate where the parking is. And finally, in the downtown area, we're going to install parking tips that we typically see in downtown San Jose. The parking tips will help delineate the parking spaces and help people find parking easier, since people will know where to park, and we're able to kind of maximize the efficiency of the parking, since people will know where to park and where to stage their vehicle. So these are the 4 key changes that we're making to the roadway. We're also going to be making some fine adjustments to help improve the existing bike lanes that are at Co, but we will not be installing new bike lanes past Minnesota, south of Minnesota.
For advanced notifications, we'll be sending out 2 notifications, one 7 days prior to the start of construction, and the second notification will be done at least 48 hours in advance. And the notifications will also be translated in Vietnamese and Spanish, and we are also going to install the changeable, or also called variable message signs, in advance, at least 7 days before paving starts at each end of the limit. And then for more information on our pavement program, if you want to find out more details, our 3-year plan, you can find this information using this QR code. So typically the detours,
Oh, it's asking about detouring.
she was asking about the detours and what do we plan to do. So typically the detour plans need to be submitted from the contractor to us and then we'll review it and approve it. But typically we don't detour through residential streets. We typically try to keep it within arterials and collectors as much as possible. And it won't be like full lane closures. It will be maybe one way will be closed at a time.
I'm a little concerned about narrowing the street on Lincoln Avenue some more. It's already so narrow. Is that something that's really gonna be safe?
Yeah, so it's our standard practice right now to narrow the lanes. We've done this in many projects across the city, and we've seen reductions in the high-end speeders. So the vehicles that are going way past the speed limit are just flying through the neighborhood. We find that narrowing the lanes really helps with that. But if you're following the speed limit, going to posted 35 miles per hour, you won't see any impact. So it's mostly the high-end speeds that will be reduced.
Patrick, do you know of any offhand 10-foot wide that we could use as a point of reference? Just because I think it feels like, oh gosh, but we're driving on them every day currently and just may not know.
Right, so some parts of Kerner Ave have 10-foot lanes. Another example I can think of is White Road also has a very tight cross-section with 10-foot lanes and bike lanes as well. So it has been done across the city. Those are the two examples I have off the top of my mind, but I can come up with more.
So if you narrow the road in the core as an example, where will the excess go? Will it go to the bike lane, go to the park strip? You know what I'm saying? It's a math game. So if you're reducing the lanes, where will the excess be attributed?
Yeah, so within the downtown area, it's already 10-foot lanes. So within the downtown area, you won't see any difference. But when you go south of Minnesota, right now we just have basically 3 lines, right? The yellow, double yellow line, and the 2 dash white lines to delineate the 2 lanes. So what we're going to do as part of this project is that far lane, the curb lane, right now is about 20 feet wide. So what we're going to do is have a white edge line to split the 2 sections 10 and 10, one for travel, one for parking. So it's really clear where people should be or park at. Yes?
It sounds efficient, like you're making everything much more efficient. I'm wondering, when it's all done, will there be less parking spaces than there are currently?
Can I answer this question? The question is relative to the parking tips, right? This has been the bane of my existence as a Willow property owner because I'm on the street all of the time and I see one car kill 3 parking spaces. And for 15 years, people have been saying, oh, we're going to lose parking. Well, I went into a meeting about a month ago with these 2 fine folks and this guy right here. And essentially, it's a wash. On one side of the street, we lose 1 parking space, and on the other side of the street, we gain 1. So net, it's a 0. But I believe it's a huge value add because, look, a lot of people have cars that you push a button and park your car, but you still got to aim for a spot, right? The reality is that this will help organize parking, and that's what I was mentioning before. So I am super excited about this because I think it's going to pay off in a lot of different sections. The other thing that's really valuable about this process is we've inherited a lot of changes over the years, right? It used to be 4 lanes. Now we have a road diet. Now we've added parklets. There's striping that's kind of all over the place, right? So this gives us an opportunity to have kind of a clean slate, which is why we did this walkthrough, to make sure that we understood what existing conditions are and what challenges are presented by this legacy of changes that we've been dealing with. And so I think there's a lot of value that's going to be able to come out of this. And so anyway, that's a longer answer, but I want to make sure to get in on that. The other thing that's going to happen, I'll just finish with this too. As you start looking a little more closely at things, one of the things we realize is the city on the parking lot behind Bergman's look terrible. They look like the worst now I wear that hat. The city looked like the worst property owner in town. And so we've now been working with the parking department about really shaking up that parking lot of, behind the old Bergman's building that, serves a lot of our businesses. And so that's also a project that's happening right now. So a lot of good little values coming along here.
I was just gonna say, first of all, I'm really too young to know what the Bergman's parking lot is, Michael. So,
What is it?
yeah, I don't know.
Labeled on here.
On TikTok is the only way I would know, so. But I think, aren't parking tees enforceable as well? I believe in some cities, parking tees are enforceable, so if you go over the tee, they're parking enforced, you get a ticket for it. So I think that's a further incentive for people to park correctly within the tees, which makes it more, in the city of San Jose, is it that way? I know in Santa Clara, I think parking tees were that way.
No, they're not enforceable unless, there's a sign.
Okay.
Yes, go from that side.
Yeah, question. Are the sidewalks part of DOT responsibility? Because as the one who went through, I know some of the sidewalks are pretty lofty, and here you have this beautiful roadway. But how about some of the sidewalks? I'm talking basically between Willow and Minnesota.
So there's going to be a lot of pissed off property owners that need it. Because they have asked. Well, because look, the reality is the sidewalk is a property owner's responsibility. And so, we could literally paint 60% of our sidewalks in the core of Lincoln Avenue right now. We're going to take it, piece by piece and go after the most difficult and challenged ones. But yes, we have a big problem with the condition of sidewalks, but it's the property owner's responsibility at the end of the day.
On the back.
Are there any plans for bike lanes on Lincoln Avenue, south of Minnesota, north of Kerner?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So basically, so we don't have any plans to extend the bike lanes past Minnesota. We did collect traffic count and we did the analysis. And what it showed us was that there are a lot of cars going south of Minnesota, which makes it very hard to implement a road diet. So basically, there's only so much space in the roadway. So to implement a bike lane, we would either have to remove all the parking up and down Lincoln from Minnesota to Kerner, or we would need to remove a travel lane in each direction, but that would result in impacts at the signalized intersection and create lots of congestion during the PM AM peak hours.
Thank you.
Yes.
At Minnesota and Lincoln, where the school is, the school is there any plans to make that turn lane inaccessible a little bit down the road because what happens is people zoom ahead because there's nobody in that left turn lane, and then they want to cut into Lincoln Avenue. They want to cut into the part of the street that's going straight.
And we did it less.
You're talking about northbound Lincoln Avenue headed towards Minnesota.
Yeah.
The school would be on the left.
It's one of the island.
Okay.
One lane is a turn lane and one lane is a straight forward.
So your concern is vehicles cutting into the right turn lane
Correct.
last minute?
I drive that way all the time, and we've had multiple accidents where people try to zoom in and then they hit somebody.
They're trying to cut the line.
There's not enough notice to get in, that's the other.
Yeah, I think so.
You don't know, a lot of people are instantly just trying to go.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, that.
Yeah.
It comes up real quick and you go, you come in,
Yeah, they don't think they.
Yeah, so with this project, we're going to upgrade the signs, make them more visible so they'll be brand new and people will know in advance of the turn. We're also going to refresh the striping and the arrows so it'll be more clear to drivers that there is a right turn lane ahead. But I will bring this back to my team, we'll take a closer look and see what else we can do.
I was just wondering if you would put those plastic.
We typically do not put the plastic delineators for the right turn only lanes. What that really does is that it pushes the problem before the delineator. So before you have people cutting closer at the intersection.
I agree. I was just wondering.
I think this was already answered with respect to the bike lanes, but there's 2 lanes on Lincoln, south of Minnesota to Kirkner, so the plan is to keep both lanes, not take one away.
Yes, as of right now, we're not going to be implementing a bike lane, so the existing cross sections, all 4 lanes will remain, 2 lanes in each direction.
Thank you.
Yes.
About a month ago, we had our street was repaved, and we're still sweeping gravel and sand off the streets. Is Lincoln Avenue going to be the same way? And if not, how come our street is cracked? Atlanta.
So I am assuming you live in a residential street and most likely it received a sealing treatment. So we can take a closer look at,
Here's the street, and this was from today. Okay? And that's just about a 3-foot diameter section of sweeping.
yeah, so typically we can send out the contractor to sweep if there's an issue that has not been addressed.
And we have not seen this, we've had 2 first of the month Fridays, and we have not, the street sweeper has not been down our street.
Got it. Yeah, I'll get the patient name. Atlanta? Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm concerned about something, it's the lack of disabled parking on Lincoln. It's all, they put a bunch of disabled parking places in the Bergman's parking lot. And there used to be an easement that went between buildings, so you could at least get through to Lincoln Avenue from behind, like where the wine shop is, and I assume that the property owners probably got tired of people going through this. But what that does is it makes disabled people walk all the way around the corner just to get to Lincoln Avenue, and then all the way back around again. I happen to be one of those disabled people that has to deal with it, so I just don't go to Lincoln Avenue. And I know a lot of people in that same situation that because there's nowhere to park. And DoorDash likes to park in those handicap spots that few that are on Lincoln Avenue, a couple of hours below. There's not enough, with an aging population in the country, it's going to become more and more of a problem. Or people who lived here for 30 plus years like me are just going to bother to go to Lincoln Avenue because there's nowhere to park.
Yeah, so I guess I can bring this back to my team. We can work with our parking team to see if we can, where we can, and inventory the existing spaces on the street itself and see what improvements we can make.
And when you really work, you look at the distance and how many steps you have to walk just to go one direction. So it really comes into play. Like somebody like me, I've had 3 back surgeries. They took my right foot apart, put it back together, solved one problem, created another. I just don't go to Lincoln Avenue. I go to CVS. If I can park at Taiwan, then I might eat at Taiwan, but otherwise, I don't bother.
Isn't that a city ordinance? Isn't that by state law?
Well,
You have to have a certain amount of handicap spaces.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true for private parking lots,
Okay.
which is where a majority of the ADA stalls are provided for.
Okay.
Not every building has parking attached to it, which then might require someone to use a street ADA spot
Okay.
for that.
Okay.
So,
Can we have Bank of America make some, because Bank of America is a huge parking. Can they have more of the parking spaces that are closest to the street, have some of them be handicapped?
So the short answer is, I know the property owner pretty well. The short answer is that by today's standards, you couldn't put ADA closer because you're essentially having somebody come out into the traffic when they get out of their car. There needs to be accessibility around. It's challenging.
Well, that would take up the fruit guy's spaces. Well, whichever parking lot, I know it's a bank.
We'll discuss further on that.
We're just taking off that easement.
The easement was not a legal easement. The private property owner didn't want the liability, so that's why we shut it down.
Oh.
We wish they would have done that.
I understand.
We're not in control.
Well, it's hard for people, and, you know, there's a lot of seniors on my section, I live on Minnesota, it's a Robin job. Seniors on my section, and they just don't go like around here. And they've lived here 50, 60 years, and now they just don't.
Yeah, we'll take a look at what we can do for the on-street spaces, which is in city right away. Yeah, we'll work with our project team.
That'd be awesome, thank you.
Yes.
During your walkthrough, did you happen to examine the loading zone and the yellow curbs? I'm a business owner on Lincoln Avenue, and the middle of the street and the turning lanes tend to be where the food and delivery trucks stop, turn on their hazards, and deliver things into our businesses. And they don't utilize the yellow curb. And I would like to use my yellow curb for a parklet or for parking or for other purposes. And I just wonder what your intelligence or your data is around the usage, the utilization or lack thereof of yellow curb loading zones.
So we did take a look and we received a lot of comments from council members, and we brought back to our team because I think some businesses may have relocated and things changed from when the previous striping and loading zones were added. So we have taken a closer look, and I think we did make some minor changes to it that we can probably follow up with more of an update on the specifics of it.
Is there a venue for a person to provide input to you on that? There's a variety of places, not just in front of my business, where there's a sign, that if that sign could be relocated maybe 5 feet to the north or the south, would make a material difference for the way people actually use the sidewalk and the space, and the sign would still inform the public in the same positive and productive way, but it was put there before sort of things evolved the way they are. And I think there's just some placemaking and some information places and some egress issues where you could, if you had a sign that said no parking here, it could easily be moved a few feet to the north or the south and make for a much better experience for people. But it, I don't really want to use a sawzall and remove a sign. But it'd be awesome if we could collaborate with someone to do so.
I'll give you, who was that said that? I'll give my business card. I'm Jennifer Sagan, I'm the deputy director in Department of Transportation, so you can.
That'd be lovely, thank you.
If anybody else also who wants that, I can provide some cards.
Thank you. And could I just make one more comment?
Sure.
I'm really, really grateful and appreciative that you all would come here tonight and listen. Most people who come to a town hall come to complain. I appreciate you working with our amazing council member. I appreciate you coming here to just listen and try to help us as residents and business owners. And I'm excited to see the street repaved and the striping and the T-tips. And I'm just really grateful as a citizen, and I appreciate your guys' work on behalf of us as residents.
You're very welcome. And in the QR code that I showed prior, we also have our general pavement email. So feel free to email us, before construction, during construction, if you have any questions or if you see that it's getting too dusty, we can work with our contractor. I know that in the past, if there is people with, disabilities, sometimes they need specific access to, their driveway or things like that. To get in or out, let us know. We'll work with to have one person there be available for that specific task.
Our membership also was Lincoln Avenue, and one big complaint that we have is the kids riding their bikes on the sidewalk instead of in the bike lane. I was run down on the sidewalk a couple of weeks ago by a father and his son, both wearing helmets, riding their bikes on the sidewalk. And I'm just looking at it for it, but it's another problem, it's just, I don't know why they
Her question was with the concern of bike users using the sidewalk and that creating a safety concern.
I mean, there's all zooming down that sidewalk sometimes.
Now they're doing it on e-bikes.
Right, I've seen them on that too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you have a response to that other than acknowledgement of the question.
Yeah, I mean, we are just basically doing some minor adjustments to the bike lanes through downtown area, just upgrading it to our latest standards with the green markings and the light symbols.
Could the schools be contacted to maybe enforce that?
Well, believe me, we get a lot of this, and we've been also talking about the e-bike phenomenon and kids riding around at 20 miles an hour without helmets on. So the safety on bikes is a big issue, and we definitely know, especially in the core, on the sidewalks. So, but we'll take it offline in a different conversation. They don't have that jurisdiction, but I appreciate you raising it for sure.
E-bikes, sorry.
You had mentioned when you redo the asphalt, you're taking out the crosswalks that are concrete, which they look like bricks, right? I'm just out of curiosity, when did that get done? And was it always the brick crosswalks or?
Well, back when it was called the Bergman Building, like in the 80s, when, you know, those really difficult concrete benches we have throughout Lincoln Avenue, right, that collect all kinds of debris and stuff, that's when those it's not even brick, it's a stamp.
So it was a beautifying issue.
It was a beautifying effort 40 plus years ago. And Chris, you probably will remember some of the other folks that have been working on the avenue. So we, you know, I wasn't going to bring this up unless somebody did, but we really did go back and forth on different options of what to do there. Some are going to be bummed out because, oh my God, the brick is so pretty. The problem is the brick has contributed to a lot of maintenance issues. You can't paint it. We can't enhance the crosswalk. We can't make it feel safer because the brick just doesn't work. So, you know, we have looked at a variety of different treatments, and we've all come to the conclusion that for long-term maintenance as well, like when we go back to resurface, you can't resurface that brick or concrete the same way you do the street. So there's always going to be this, she showed you the photo, that disconnect between the concrete and the asphalt. There's always going to be that little anthill that gets created between the two. It becomes a trip hazard, right? So we went to the full removal and full replacement of asphalt so that we get a nice, easy, clean runway that we can maintain over time and we can enhance with the kind of striping that you see near schools and, you know, to really, you know, try to create a safer crosswalk environment.
And someone that's been a resident of Willow my whole life, when those brick things were first done, they were bright red, so they stood out. Now they're so muddy and so dirty that you really don't see a difference between asphalt and brick. It's very difficult.
Yeah. So that's the short story. So if somebody complains about the brick, have them call me. I'm happy to tell them why we're doing it this way.
Maybe I missed this, but one question. You said it was gonna be 2 months of project
Yes.
upgrading?
So yes, we'll be starting in middle of September and we'll be finishing by the end of October. But not everything will be from, we'll have, for example, milling 1 week, then we pause, weekend. Next week, we come in and then we put asphalt. And then about 2 weeks, when we do the striping markings, his team will check that the contractor is gonna be placing it in the correct area. Once he approves it, then the final striping gets installed. And that typically only takes like 2 or 3 days. And then we get another break, and then we raise all the utilities, and that's typically a 1 or 2 day.
So
it's-
the dirty work is the milling. That's the short story you're probably wondering, right? The real dirty work is the milling.
And then, I hope it's okay to ask this question. What's the total cost, and do you have all the funds in place currently
I don't have the specific cost for this street, but for the project alone, it's almost $9 million, and we're planning to pave 14 miles, and it's about 13 streets throughout the city.
Okay, thank you.
And there's gonna be a pass the hat area at the end.
Yes.
So just a little bit more on this, and I kind of started answering my question. So if I'm a business on Lincoln Avenue, what can I tell our customers and our staff? If we see the milling starting on X date, does it look like then that there's gonna be disruption in front of our business for a total of 3 weeks, which will cover the milling, the striping, and the final striping? Like for each sort of, how big is the work for each phase, and how long will businesses be disturbed in front of their business typically?
Yeah, so typically, because it is a long corridor that we're going to be paving, so typically we're gonna break it down into 3 or 4 sections. So one section of milling will be done one day, and then the next day, the next section, and then the following day, and so on. And the same thing for paving. We'll start at the same area and then work our way down.
So
And-
the milling all gets done at the same time over the full stretch of the roadway? So the disruption is gonna be for the full mid-September through the end of October? It's not like,
No. So typically milling, it's a very fast operation. So typically they'll start with the out. So for example, they'll try to pick maybe half a mile to 0.8 miles of length, and they'll mill the outside lanes, then they'll switch to the middle lane, and then once that's all milled, then they'll move to the next section south. Does that make sense? And then work their way up, their way down. And then once everything has been milled, and then we'll have also transitions, like little tapers, so that it is safe to use the road after we have done that. And then once that's completed, then the next week we're gonna come back, and then we're going to pave. And the same thing, starting the first stretch of the street, we'll pave the outside lanes, and then we'll pave the inside. But
And just
typically,
on your note, I appreciate the wanting some clarity. We don't know how exactly we're gonna do it yet, and we're gonna continue to work with the communications.
yes.
We're gonna work with DOT and the Business Association, especially for those businesses that want to communicate with their customers in advance. A combination of our social media, email, business association, we'll do our best to give as much specificity around what the impacts will be. I really don't believe you're gonna be in a place where you're gonna have to say, don't come to our business today. That is not what the plan is. We're gonna do everything we can to eliminate you having to say, we're closed today. That is not success for us. Okay.
so, I mean, obviously, we're going into the fourth quarter.
Right.
Days make a difference for businesses surviving and not surviving. A single day at a business is very disruptive. So, I mean, I understand this is a done deal, and actually, I think it's moving quicker than I anticipated. I expected to hear 2 months, 3 months. Really, I'm just curious, why this time of year? Like when school's starting up and
Well, we're doing
businesses
that.
depend on
Yeah.
the fourth quarter sales, it's incredibly difficult.
I think, whether it be, weather-driven reasons you couldn't do it at a certain time, or, you name it, events, right? We can't do it until September because the kids aren't back at school yet. There's a bunch of events that, have already planned to use the street, whether it be the Mulcahy, the Uma Star Show, Glen Fest, which is, the Business Association's event. So we feel like, we picked the time, especially with the dirtiest work, it probably has the greatest impact. As early in that fall season, it's not even fall yet, but you know what I'm saying, so that we're not getting into the dirty work and the real impactful time, October, November, which we know is really the money parts of the year for everybody. So, as I mentioned, there's going to be some short-term pain for long-term gain. We'll apologize in advance if the schedule slips, but these folks all know from DOT how important the protection of the business district is and revenue generation for our small businesses. So we'll take that, to heart.
And just one thing to add to is that we're going to be working with our contractor to have very detailed information on when we're going to be paving each section. So we're going to have a very detailed breakdown of the scope of work, and we'll work with your council office to share that information as well. Yeah. Yes. And also just to add, for the streets that we pave, it's only 14 miles of resurfacing, but for my program alone, it's about 53 miles that we're maintaining, and for the city, it's closer to 200. So it's a lot of coordination that takes place every year. And for our arterials, streets typically, because of all the prep work that needs to happen, like ADA compliance, getting Caltrans, county, a lot of permits that are required, ensuring that the striping plans are reviewed by multiple teams. Typically, the summer and fall is when we typically pave most of our streets.
Kind of to tie into her question, you provided a lot of data, why you're doing things a certain way, leading up to the decisions that have been made. Have you gone back to any businesses in downtown core similar to this, and then asked the business owners how much money they lost during that time to be able to warn business owners in a situation like this? Should business owners be expecting to lose 10% sales during this time, 30%, 50%, just so some of us kind of budget accordingly, because we know there will be disruptions, and how much of a financial impact has it be?
I mean, I don't think, you probably don't have any data on that. Randy, we don't have, and don't expect to do that. The project is gonna happen, as I mentioned to Doug the other day. The hope is that this is creating an opportunity for everybody eventually by organizing, improving, beautifying, and then adding on top of that some of the other enhancements that we're working on in the office. So the short answer, we don't have that data, but we understand that that's a big concern, and we're going to do everything we can, from a scheduling and sort of sequential standpoint, not to impact the businesses, but can't tell you.
It's probably never a good time to do it, but we gotta do it, right? So.
And just to clarify, I'm all for it. You just have so much data on why you're doing things, which is great. It surprised me how much you're making decisions based off of data and traffic flow. I think that just one last piece is how to get that information from business owners after the fact to communicate to
I'm happy if you do experience it. I mean, you won't have a year over year in your particular business. Why don't you actually introduce yourself so people know who you are?
my name's Anie. I'm the owner of Sushi Confidential, and we're going to be moving into the Glen community. I feel like we've been a part of the community over the last 13 years, and we do a lot of catering here, but we're happy to be a part of it and willing to do whatever we can to integrate ourselves.
So I met one of his managing partners the other day, and I told him, hey, we're doing this resurfacing. I said, hey, when are you opening? So they were planning to open just around this time, which is why I think they're all sensitive to it. So I appreciate you being here.
I do have to say that they just repaved my residential street, and I really at first was kind of like, oh. But they are efficient, and they come through, and they get it done, and it is, I was amazed. So,
I mean, it's like flying the airplane and fixing it at the same time. So we understand that that's even more sensitive in the core. So.
Quick question, how do you compare this project to the one that they did at the Mulcahy when they did all the paving? I know they added like the document project, or is this gonna be a lot bigger?
I believe that one was a BTA project.
But the bus rapid transit, yeah, that was BTA.
We don't have any of that infrastructure.
We are faster.
There's no concrete. It's all asphalt.
Yes, it should be.
Asphalt and paint.
It should be more straightforward, and also to add, the contractor that we have for this project is MCK, and they're very productive and production heavy, so they'll ensure that they're in and out as quick as possible, and we'll also be working very closely with Materials Lab to ensure that all the quality control takes place throughout our project. Yes, sir.
I feel like the last time they did Lincoln Avenue south of the school, that within 6 months, the utility company came in and trenched it. What helps, or how do you mitigate utilities coming right at
Talk my language, baby.
So,
John, what's the timing on it?
Well, Annie will probably answer it, but we coordinate with the utilities in advance of our paving season to the best we can. When they have a planned project, we know about it and we adjust our time. There is often that there is an emergency that occurs, and it happens to us too, because we're responsible for all the sewers. Sometimes we've got to go dig up that road to fix the sewer. You don't want your sewer and toilet not working. So the answer is we coordinate that with all the big utilities in advance. Sometimes there's an emergency.
So we might get 6 months and then an emergency?
Well, then there's a moratorium, at least a year, 2 years, 2 year moratorium.
so we do have
Again,
a
there's an emergency.
That was my question, because I'm on Pine Avenue, we have a beautiful street, absolutely gorgeous. 2 months later, the water came in and tore up the whole street again. And I mean, I thought there was a moratorium, they could care less. So,
The
we're
quality of the
paying
matches.
$5 million for a beautiful street that's all safety, and the utility will come in and tear it up. So, my tax dollars is not, what fight do we have to stop utilities for non-emergency work?
I totally understand that sentiment, and I feel the same every time a utility company cuts through a street that we just paved. So we definitely try to be as, proactive with all the coordination. So we do have quarterly meetings with San Jose Water. We have coordination meetings with all the utility companies. And typically, what John mentioned is that with emergency work, that is just something that you can't really plan ahead. So that's typically, but if you notice that a trench was done, someone digged the street and it was done relatively close to when we paved, let us know, inform us. Sometimes we get notified, sometimes we don't. And if you feel that the restoration was not done properly, let us coordinate this. Like, every utility company is required to maintain that trench, and there is not a limited time. So if it fails within a year, let us know. We're more happy to coordinate that effort and ensure that our streets are done how they should be and following our specifications, our compaction. Thank you.
Maybe a related question. There's a new restaurant that's going in Minnesota and Lincoln Avenue that they bought the market, convenience market. Okay, so I think I reviewed that plan I think they were required to do, they're changing some traffic lights, putting in some traffic calming. They're not adding parking, but they were required because the school's there to add some traffic calming. Are you guys involved with that?
There's no project there.
What do you mean?
There's no project happening there. And there's plans, but there's no project. There's nothing actively happening there in terms of a project. We could talk about it offline. But if there were, and using that as an example, if there were,
Yes, right.
believe me, this is one of the things that is, from a policy perspective, that we're really looking at, whether it's the USA striping and the vendors that don't come back out after a project is done and get rid of that USA paint. And like, for example, like on this project, we're gonna be really talking about making sure that this contractor is responsible so that on any given section of Lincoln Avenue, we're not walking over red and yellow and orange stripes for the next 2 years, right? Things like that. What you're asking is about the coordination. I think the city needs to do a better job of it, but nonetheless, there is a, sort of a procedure in place to do that. Specifically on your concern about that project, there is not a current project to be worried about relative to that site.
I would just like to ask one more question. Wouldn't it be cost effective to have everyone have a green garbage can rather than have that thing that comes through your street and picks up the leaves and destroys the mess?
I have a club you can join if you want. Some people are really into
That
hybrid.
gets me, plus, not to mention the fact that they drag the SHIT all the way down the street.
Get photos.
So from my understanding, that is something that has to be coordinated, and there is a cost that is associated with having a bin. So that may be cost sensitive for some residents. Yeah.
I mean, but doesn't the city make money off of that green?
Don't think so.
The guy has to get out of
Used
the
to
truck
have to
to
pay
load
for
it
it.
in. The guy has to get out of the truck and load it in. It's a labor.
Plus
It
you
takes
can
more
put it on.
time.
I do have a public service announcement. And we're gonna take one last question and we'll turn it back over to Zach. But on the notice about the leaves and grasses that are in front of people's houses, if you're a dog owner, do not put your poop bag in there. Does anybody know why? It actually costs us all more money when that happens. It's inorganic, and the garbage company charges us more because they have to separate that out. I have somebody in my neighborhood, I actually have a poop station in front of my house. But yet there's a neighbor in my greater neighborhood that goes around and picks out poop bags and puts them on the curb. And it's like the bane of her existence. So I promised her that if ever had a group of people, please encourage people that are dog owners not to put poop bags in front of somebody else's house, especially in their inorganic materials or their materials that are on the street. No, don't put it in the pile. Use your own personal garbage can. Okay. Hey, stand up and show the guy in the back from Project X your cool shirt. Willow, Glen, Todd Hernandez. Check it out. Turn around. That's one of the Willow Glen Rams. She used to be a teacher at Willow Glen High School. Yes.
Maybe this is answered. So will all of this also improve the flow of traffic on Lincoln? Is that the hope? Is any of that in there?
Yeah, so, the striping more or less will remain the same, so we expect traffic operations to be pretty much identical to what we have now. But what we are doing is making the street safer by narrowing the lanes and making sure, with the high-vis crosswalks, pedestrians are visible. So that's what we are doing. We're enhancing safety, but expect traffic to be around the same as what we see now.
It seems like you're making it more walkable, which I think for all business owners here, I want to thank you for sticking it out through the pandemic and through, all the paving and stuff. In the end, we benefit from your business, and I promise you, we will all get through, this together and come to your stores, and you are the anchor of Willow. I think we're the best city in California. It is.
Just on the note of having organized parking, I think that'll help, kind of get somebody in and out of the parking space a lot quicker, which could help, with traffic.
It takes 30 minutes.
We don't want commuters on the street. We don't want commuters on Lincoln, we don't want big trucks on Lincoln, we don't want DoorDash trucks blocking Lincoln, so we're gonna get after that. So we are done with ours. Do you have more business?
No, it's just,
So we are gonna sort of, we've heard some good things. I want to thank Patrick and Annie for a tremendous amount of input from our office, from me specifically, of like taking 25 years of angst on Lincoln Avenue, walking them through some of the things that we thought personally would be enhancements. And we're going to do our best to make this as seamless as possible. There will be some pain, but I really believe there's a lot of gain ahead of us. We're going to try to figure out the best way for us to be communicative with you. We have both the business community as well as our residential community that are going to be impacted here. So we'll figure out from our office perspective the best way to communicate with you, but then we'll also coordinate with the business association who has a better direct connection to our businesses, and then the Willow Glen Neighborhood Association who has a really good connection, obviously, to you. So thanks everybody for your time. I'm going to turn it back over to
Yes, thank you for coming and taking your evening to show up. We really appreciate it. The businesses, thank you guys for all the work you do on Lincoln. That is so important for us to support our small businesses in Willow Glen.
Yes.
If you're not a member of WGNA yet, WGNA.net. Go on there and sign up for membership. We appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.